How is it that we are working harder than ever and still falling farther behind? It's because the cost of living is higher than the average salary. It's insane. It really is. When the cost of living is higher than the average salary, people can never get any savings. People can never get any kind of security. And if we don't have any savings, if we don't have any security, then the people up top will always have leverage over us. They'll always have power over us. Because if we don't have any bit of savings, we can't ever say no. We can't ever make the system work for us instead of for them. And Americans just don't have enough money, and it's not our fault. We're the ones that do the actual work to create everything. The boss relies on us. And so many people have had that job where they bust their butt, they open the place, they stay late, they get there early, and when they ask for a raise, they're told no, there's not enough money. But you hear about the profit going up and up, but the salary stays the same. And that's the only way that the cost of living can be higher than the salary. And they tell us that it's our fault, it's our problem, that we're broke because we're lazy, because we don't know how to budget. But really, it's because it's a rigged game. It's a rigged system. It's like a carnival game, really. It's like you see the basketball hoops at the carnival, and you're like, nice, I'm good at basketball. I was always told that if you worked hard and practice, that you'd be good at basketball. And I was really good at basketball just a couple years ago. Let me go give it a shot. And you go to that carnival game, and you're shooting those baskets, and every single one is missing. And you think it's your fault. We all think it's our fault. Even the carnival person, the person that knows that the game is never going to work in your favor, starts blaming you. And so you get really confused because you're like, wait, I did everything I was supposed to get good at this. But it's not your fault. It's that the game was rigged. And so that's what we're talking about here is we're talking about when hard work stops covering the basics. When hard work doesn't get people enough money to afford to live. Because what happens when the average cost of living is higher than the average salary? Well, people don't have enough to create security. And when we don't have enough money, we're afraid of financial ruin because we're one step away from financial ruin. And when we're one step away from financial ruin, we are easy to divide. Have you ever walked into a Walmart and then had that Walmart employee roll their eyes at you and walk the other way? Or have you ever walked into a Walmart or a Home Depot and had the employee tell you, I don't know? That's because that employee isn't paid enough to care. Well, you think that they would pay enough to care because if you continually walk into that business and the employees continually treat the customers like crap, well, if we had an option of where else to go, then we wouldn't shop there anymore, right? But that's where the corporations know that they got rid of all the competition. They got rid of all the mom and pop shops. And that's where, why doesn't 40 hours a week cover the basics anymore? That's the question that we're asking. Why can somebody work 40 hours a week for a company that makes billions of dollars, and then that person who's working 40 hours a week, their salary doesn't cover the cost of living? Well, that's because there's no real competition anymore. We already said earlier, the reason that the salary doesn't cover the cost of living is because companies don't need to pay their employees enough to care. Because the only reason that a company would pay their employees enough to give a crap would be as if they were afraid that the customer would go shop somewhere else or that the employee would go work somewhere else. But the corporations got rid of all the mom and pop shops like 40 or 50 years ago. And so when we go and ask for a raise, and because they don't have to give us a raise because there's no competition, they tell us, no, you don't get a raise. It's your fault for being lazy. It's your fault for not knowing how to budget. So then they blame us for them being greedy. They blame us and make us feel bad about it. And Patrick, that's why we drop the me's. I appreciate that. Because they make us feel like we're isolated. Patrick, they make it feel like you did something wrong. They make it feel like we did something wrong, right? It's almost like you go up to that game at the carnival and you're like, all right, cool, I'm pretty good at basketball. And you miss every shot you take. And you feel really bad about yourself because everybody around you is blaming you for missing those shots. But then later on, you find out that the ball was always going to be too big for the rim. And suddenly you're like, wait, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. And that's where so many of us are working 40 hours a week and still falling farther behind. And then we're told that it's our fault that the cost of living is higher than the salary. Oh, what do you mean your cost of living is higher than the salary? You should have worked harder. You should have gotten a better job. You should just move somewhere else. Because it really messes with people psychologically, right? To be working 40 hours a week and still not have enough to live. Particularly when the previous generation, man, does anybody else remember being a kid and not thinking about like, oh, I guess when I'm an adult, I guess I'm not going to be able to afford food even though I'm working full time. Oh, when I'm an adult, I'm going to struggle to pay healthcare. I really thought that when you became an adult, you got a little bit more freedom. But what we figured out, right, is that you only get freedom if you have freedom of choice. And you only have freedom of choice if you have money, right? Well, Justin, that's the part that normally gets skipped, right? Why is it that people have to work more than 40 hours to cover the cost of living, right? Newest crew, I hear you, but that's where we need to fix it. And what we're trying to do is not lay the blame at the feet of anybody. It's just kind of see what is happening. What are the mechanics behind this? Because America is definitely not in its golden age. Corporations don't care about us. Like, that's a big part of it, right? That's kind of what I would say, like the ethos. Corporations just don't care about us, right? And that's the problem. And so the previous section was, well, why don't they care about us? And that's because they took over the economy. There's no competition. One of the other reasons they don't care about us, so we already talked about the fact that there's no competition. They don't have to care for us. They don't even have to pretend like they care for us when there's no competition, right? But then it's also because so they can control us. It's that they used to rely, if a company is small, then that company relies on the community that it started in, right? So if a company is small, it actually cares about its community because the company understands, oh, dang, the community's health is directly tied to our business's health. But then what if you don't depend on just one community, but you depend on 1,000 communities? So now any single one of those individual communities, they don't actually matter to you. They're all just numbers, and you can hurt a bunch of those communities because there are no consequences. So newest crew, that was really the next point. It was so funny. So the previous point is, well, they wanted control. They wanted to make more money. So they wanted to figure out how to pay us less and less. Well, they did that by getting rid of competition, right? Who among us has walked into a Walmart, walked into a Home Depot, and you ask the employee a question, and that employee is not paid enough to care? So they walk the other way. And the corporation doesn't have to pay that employee enough to care, because we can't go and shop at the local general store. That got ran out of business 40 and 50 years ago. The local hardware store is also gone. So Ace and Home Depot and Lowe's, they don't need to pay their employees enough to care. So let's talk about what happens after a couple decades of that. So corporations realize, oh, shoot, we don't have to pay our employees, because where the heck else? Yeah, it's not the employee's fault. Where the heck else are they going to go shop? So it's the employers doing this. No, Ace employees, here's the thing about Ace. I'll take a quick aside. Lowe's and Home Depot actively show that they hate their consumers. Ace is the same way. Their employees also don't like the consumers, but their whole shtick is, oh man, the other people hate the two hardware stores so much that if we just pretend to be the neighborhood hardware store, then maybe people would like us here. $20 is nothing. That's like less than this. That's way less than this. This is taking an average of, I think, 77,000 in urban, 65,000 in suburban, and 60 grand in rural. So working 40 hours a week does not cover the basics anymore. But when you bring that up, people get angry, right? $20 an hour doesn't cover the basics. It's just Roger has never done the math to actually look at that. Roger just feels like feelings. Remember, facts are more important than feelings. Roger feels like $20 an hour should be enough money. But I can guarantee you Roger has never done the math, because $20 an hour is nothing. And that's where they don't want us to have any savings, Roger. Because if you have 3 months of savings, if you have 6 months of savings, then when you are underpaid at that crappy job, you can say, no, I'm not working here anymore. You can say, no, boss, I'm not working another double this weekend when I worked doubles the last 3 weekends. Because if you are unable to make ends meet, it is the fact that your employer is not paying you enough. Because anytime somebody offers a job, it's so they can make more money. They're not offering a job out of charity. So that's what we're doing here, is we are talking about how the control over the economy for the corporations led to regular Americans not having enough money. If regular Americans don't have enough money, you know what it is? We lose leverage, right? We lose leverage. So it's always so funny to me that people get so frustrated when we point this out, because it's like, well, of course a corporation doesn't want you to be able to negotiate for a higher salary, because that eats into their profit. And if you have 6 months of savings or 1 year of savings, then you have a lot of leverage. Because if you can support yourself for a year without having to go to work, without having to listen to a boss, that's a lot of power. So if the boss wants to keep you working there, they better make their work environment better than the alternative, right? So this is why so many places want to keep us broke, because then they can treat us however they want, because if we're all broke, we don't have any leverage to negotiate. Because when you are 2 or 3 weeks away from not being able to pay your rent or not being able to pay food, then you're going to accept that crappy job regardless because you have no leverage. Now, if somebody came and offered you, hey, I'll offer you $7.25 an hour. You know what? I'm generous. I'll offer you $9 an hour for backbreaking work. Well, the only way you're going to accept that is if you have no savings. If somebody offered you $7.25 for backbreaking work and you had a year's worth of savings in your bank account, well, you're going to say no because you're going to find you have enough leverage to wait until a better option comes along. And that's why full-time work doesn't have to cover the basics, because corporations know that they have all the leverage, that if the majority of Americans are just a few weeks away from not being able to afford food or not being able to afford rent, then we have to accept that minimum wage job. We have to go work in that crappy work environment. So one of the biggest things that they have done is completely eliminate the free market. It is to completely get rid of any competition, because if there is competition, then they have to pay their employees more to care. They have to pay their employees enough to care. Because if we could walk into Walmart and they roll their eyes at us, if we could walk out and go to Debbie's General Store down the street, 80% of people do not have savings. That's 208 million people with only a couple grand in the bank account. So when 80% of people do not have savings, we're not here to answer questions. I apologize. We're here to talk about the movement, explain the process of how we got here, and let everybody know what we're doing about it. So this is more of a PSA, not a Q&A. That's for sure. And it was funny because I don't think you asked a question before then. So you said, I'm listening. You said leverage is everything. Gold is money. And then you literally said one question. It took me 10 seconds to answer it. And you got upset. So what we were talking about is, why doesn't 40 hours a week cover the basics anymore? And then when 8 out of 10 people say, hey, why doesn't 40 hours a week cover the basics anymore? It's so funny because like 3 or 4 people show up and they'll deny Motor Mouth's reality, right? They'll deny Michael's reality. They'll deny Clover Rock's reality, deny the people who are in here saying, hey, I'm one of the people that works 40 hours a week. And the other person just came in. They were like, oh, they make $20+ an hour. And it goes, tell me how I know that you've never done the math of what $20+ an hour is. Because it is not enough to live on. And that's where being a business owner, having my perspective, is easy to see. So it's so funny, right? Motor Mouth, I literally called it. And then somebody 10 seconds later came in and denied your reality. And it's because of a couple different things. But really, it's because they've wrapped their identity in America being a good place, right? They've wrapped their identity in America being this very particular thing, the land of the free, the home of the brave. Well, I ask people so much, like, what is the point of a society? What is the point of a society? That's all that I want to know. Because I bet you that person would say something like, freedom, freedom. But once again, right? Freedom would be the ability to have choices. Wouldn't freedom be the ability to say no? And if the majority of people can't leave their job, can't walk away from a bad situation, if the majority of people do not have the ability to say no, are they really free? That's where a job is more like an open air prison, right? You can walk out of that job. There's no guards. They won't chase you down. But when you walk out, there's no opportunity, right? When you walk out, there's no opportunity. So Donnie, you're just wrong because the company relies on the business. So let's think of it like this. If a company was small enough that they relied on one single community, then that company would be very careful with how they treated that community because the company understood that their business's health relied on the community. Well, when these companies get so big that they do not have to care about any individual communities, that is how you get to the point where the average cost of living is higher than the average salary. What we believe in is localism. It should just be that the people who are the owners and shareholders of the companies, they should care about the community because the community's health is just as important as the business's health. And what we are doing is we are showing people that what happens when working 40 hours a week stops being enough, right? What happens when Americans under 40 are the first generation in our country's history to be worse off than their parents? It becomes down to the fact that the majority of people don't have enough money. And then when people stand up and say, hey, I'm one of the people who's working 40 hours a week and doesn't have enough money, people go, no, you're not. No, you're not. So we went through the economy. That was the previous topic. The economy was really important because that is where it's so funny, Donnie. You depend on someone else for everything. You get in a car every single morning to go to work. Somebody else built that car. You drive on the road. Somebody else built that road. You go to the grocery store. Somebody else grew that food. Somebody else went and picked it up in a truck. Somebody else washed that food. If you eat meat, Donnie, somebody else cut that meat up and they packaged it for you. Somebody else is doing your healthcare, Donnie. I don't think you're taking care of your own healthcare. When your kids were born, they went to education that was set up by the system that everybody else does. And no, you're the one that is missing the point because what humans need are three things: food, housing, and water. And you've been lied to your whole life that you've been told that if people have food, housing, and water, that they get lazy. You believe that if people have the things that they need, that they do not have incentive to work. But really, that's telling more about yourself and your state of mind than anything else. Because all we're saying, Donnie, is that corporations don't care about you. Corporations don't care about you. Corporations don't care about you. But for some reason, Donnie, you want to push back against that. I don't know why. And that's kind of the question that I'm asking. When I say corporations don't care about you, why do people like Donnie jump to defend it? Because that's really what I'm asking. When I say corporations don't care about you, why does Donnie say depending on someone else to take care of you is way more risky than taking care of yourself? Donnie, do you make your own medicine? Because if you don't make your own medicine, Donnie, then you rely on somebody else. So Wigsley, but you care about the people that deliver the food to your grocery store. You care about the doctor that delivers you health care. You care about the pharmacist that gives you medicine. Because if any of those things were not there, you wouldn't be able to live as happy and a healthy life. It doesn't matter that you pay. You still rely on other people for it. It's not about the pay. It's about the physical aspect of doing it. Clover Rack, down here. You're up here. We need you down here. We stay a long time on the diagnosis because a lot of people argue about what the disease is, right? We argue a lot about what the disease is, and people want to jump right to the solution. But if all the different people in here, there's 90 different people, if some of the people think the disease is something different than the other people, then we're all going to be going towards a different cure. We're all going to be arguing. And Daniel's really got it right because capitalism used to understand that the community was just as important as the owner and the stakeholders. That I can go and build a factory, But unless I have 1,000 people to work in that factory ain't going to produce shit. I, as a business owner, know this myself. I have 6 locations. I have to rely on other people to open 5 of those 6 locations because I cannot be in 6 places at once. I can only be at one. And if a job doesn't cover it, it's on purpose. Because what all jobs, so there used to be this thing called competition, where there was lots of mom and pop shops that could compete against the corporations. And when there was lots of competitions, employees had to keep their salaries high enough. Employers had to keep their salaries high enough for the employees to care. Because if the employees didn't care, they'd give bad customer service. And if they gave bad customer service, we would leave and we'd go shop somewhere else. But now there are no more mom and pop stores. We can't go to Debbie's General Store to spite Walmart because Walmart ran out Debbie's General Store 50 years ago. So Walmart accountants sat down and they said, well, if we raise prices, the consumers will get upset. But if we keep salaries the same, if we simply don't pay our employees enough to care, then it looks like then we'll just blame the employees for being lazy and being bad employees. I mean, we know we're not paying them enough to care because if we had actual competition, then we would have to pay enough to care because our consumers would just leave. Here we go. We know all the answers to these, so it's so funny when you bring them. So the first thing people say is, if you accepted that job, that's your fault. But what we're actually talking about is leverage. If you had 3 months of savings, would you accept a minimum wage job? If you had 1 year of savings, would you accept a job with a toxic work culture? Not at all. Because if you have savings, that means you have leverage. If you don't have savings, that means they have control. The only way that someone would work 40 hours a week at $7.25 an hour is if they had no leverage, is if they had no control. And the only way that they have no leverage or control is if they were purposefully not given enough money to build that leverage. So it's so funny because you can work for a company, you can sit in the quarterly meetings and hear about the stock price go up and up and up. Yet when you ask for a raise, they tell you there's not enough. And so what we have to understand is even after explaining to Zimtho what's going on, they still have their head in the sand. So let's go ahead and drop some knees. Merv, you're good, man. Don't worry about it. Derail, distract, divide, right? We're here for each other. Because they make us feel so isolated. Because really, people like Mythoclast are playing right into the hands of the billionaires. People like Mythoclast are being manipulated, and they don't even know it. Motormouth, I know, right? That's where Motormouth, I want you to stand strong because Eli came in here ripping on you. We got the other one, and we have to understand that those are the people whose heads are in the sand. Daniel, I love you. Daniel, you got to join this. So, because Daniel, that's what this is really all about. Both parties are two sides of the same coin, and that coin is in a billionaire's pocket. They're like good cop, bad cop, right? One of them pretends to be nicer, but they both work for the same corrupt system. And it's so funny because all we're saying is, hey, corporations don't really care about you, right? Corporations don't really care about you. And then because they care about money more than they care about you, they schemed to try to figure out how to pay you as little as possible. They figured out that if they can pay you, the way to pay you as little as possible is to get rid of all the competition. Once they got rid of all the competition, the consumers had no choice, so they didn't have to pay their employees enough to care. So that's been step one. And then the next one is the god dang media. Because the media no longer works for the people, the media works for profit. And that's a big reason why our society is broken. Because the media used to ground us in the same reality. This is the reason, Mr. Kloverak, because the media and the politicians are against that. So the whole system's set up. So the media used to ground us in the same reality. The media used to tell all of us that 2 + 2 = 4. Luna Soul, if you can't wait, here is the Discord. If you can wait another 5 minutes, what I am trying to do is I'm going to talk about the disease. And then once we can all agree to the group disease, then we will talk about the cure. And y'all, it's not about team red or team blue. So if you come in here talking politics, pointing fingers left or right, you're missing the message. What we're really talking about is that both sides are complicit. I hate the blue team and I hate the red team. I do not like either of them because they both work for the corporations. So politicians work for the people that fund their campaign. That's it. Politicians work for the people that fund their campaign. We think that they work for their salary, but they don't. Politicians work for the people that fund their campaign. So let me get back to the media, though, because we did the economy. The economy was big. When we could vote with our dollar, they listened to us. When we could vote with our dollar, they listened to us. So they got rid of our ability to vote with our dollar. They got rid of all the competition. Then they owned the media because they knew that if we had I can't remember if Tom Brokaw got canceled at, but if they had a Tom Brokaw figure that everyone in America trusted, left, right, center, wacko or normal, everybody in America trusted this person on the news, then they would tell us the truth, right? Then they would tell us this is what is happening. So that's why they had to get rid of that news. I call BS. You got to just give me a minute. We're here talking to all the other 54 people in this room as well. We have to really focus on the disease because if 20 of us think it's 20 different diseases, we are going to go after different cures. There we go. Walter Cronkite is who I was looking for. So the economy, then the media, they do not believe us. Or they ground us in different realities. And it's so funny because rather than asking, why were these group of people told that 2 + 2 = 5? And why were these people told that 2 + 2 = 4? Instead of doing that, we kind of just argue with the other set of people, right? That's human nature. The only reason they were able to do all this, by the way, is because the ultra wealthy cooperate with each other. They make us live in a life full of competition. They make us think the world is dog eat dog. But really, cooperation is so powerful that only 1% of people are cooperating and they're controlling the other 99% of us with it. So here you all are. Let's get to the solution because it's much more elegant and simple than we think it is. It just is going to take a little bit more effort than a day of protesting, than just going to vote. Because protesting alone is not power. Coordinating alone is not power. United uprising together, that isn't real power. Power doesn't lie in legislation. Power doesn't lie in stop paying your taxes. Power is the people that control your food. The people that control your food, they have power over you. The people that control your health care and your medicine, God damn, that's some power over you. Those aren't the lawmakers, though. It's not the lawmakers. These are the corporations that control these things. The corporations. The lawmakers were supposed to correct the imbalances against us and the corporations. But as we already talked about, the politicians work for the people that fund their campaign. So the politicians work for the corporations. But are we trying to use laws to fix this? That's what I don't get. Because that's probably what is not going to happen. Because once again, change does not live in just coming together. Change does not happen when enough people agree. That if enough people could just wake up or take action or elect new politicians, all would be good. That's not what power is. That's what we've been told. It's what it feels like power is. Because because the system tells us that's what power is, because that's the kind of power that the system can deal with. Not even a new money system. That's a little too far. You're really close in the right direction, though. Because our democracy isn't failing because people are apathetic. Our democracy isn't failing because, people aren't voting. Our democracy is failing is because we're stuck in a system that only works for corporations and does not work for us. Our democracy is failing because we have no other options. In democracy, the main thing that we're supposed to be able to do is protest and spread the truth. But if we protest, it doesn't do anything. When we protest, I think of us like this. I think of us as a 10-year-old child that is telling their parents they're going to run away from home. Mom, Dad, I'm going to run away from home. And the parents just laugh because that 10-year-old is completely dependent, right? So that's where it really, I kind of laugh too when people are like, we're going to write new laws. I think of that 10-year-old saying, I'm going to run away. Okay, you can write new laws, but if you don't have any of the power to enforce them, if you literally continue to have to rely. So that's where it's like, if a 10-year-old told their parents, all right, unless you leave, I'm going to, unless you change the rules, I'm going to leave. I know, but it doesn't do anything. When they actively, and that's where it comes back to, Jadika, corporations actively hate us. So they can visibly see it, but if they actively hate us, then that doesn't really matter. People will not move away. So when the system stops working for everyday people, the best way to regain leverage is to just leave that system. It's to build a new one and make the old one optional. Our reliance on corporations is the power they have over us. If we reduced our dependence on corporations, they'd have less power over us, right? Because right now, corporations have power over us because they control where our food comes from. They control our healthcare and our medicine. They control the housing. They control retirement and jobs. That is real power, controlling the resources that human beings need to live. So that's what we need to take back. No, Skywater, they wouldn't. People are a product of their society. And if the people who are born into a society that says greed is good, F you, I got mine, it feels like people are greedy because we have not had a guardrail against greed for a long time. Skywater, if you're old enough, no, it's not. Skywater, if you're old enough, there used to be a thing called selling out. And goddamn, we hated sellouts. Nirvana would not ever appear in a commercial. They wouldn't ever even do any kind of deals that would sell their things. Because we used to have this tamper on our greed. And it was all of us going, hey, you'd be a sellout. You put money over life. That's what a sellout is. You used to be a sellout if you chose money over happiness, money over life. Because we used to understand that money was just one ingredient in the recipe of happiness. That money made us stop. What money does is money prevents you from being unhappy. It doesn't give you happiness, because just having a house doesn't make you happy, but not having a house certainly can make you unhappy, right? Just having food won't make you happy, but certainly not having food will make you unhappy. So money is just one in the many ingredients it takes to bake the cake of happiness. Because what money really does is it allows you to have some security, to have a little bit of dignity. And when you have security, dignity, and some self-respect, then you're able to go out and build a community, right? But it basically comes down to this. People will not change away from corporate options, not because of ideology. There you go. There you go, Jadika. That's it. So then when you think of, let's stop giving them our money, logically, I go, oh shit, we can't do that in many cases. We need them. There are very few local grocery stores, and if they are, they get a lot of it from big corporations too. There are very few corporations that we can get, small business we can get clothes from, right? So there are so many things that we depend on them for. That's why it's not going to be something that all happens right away. It's going to be something that happens slowly, because we can't just all of a sudden depend on them for the grocery store and then and then be like, everything, let's make all of it. No. So we're going to start with one thing. But that's really all that it takes is, so we have to think of, all right, we need food. Well, it's not that the corporations are the ones that actually do the hard work to make the food. They are literally paying a farmer for their skill and their time and their knowledge. So they're kind of just intermediaries. They sort of are just in between. Corporations don't add anything. We are the economy, not the corporations. We are the ones that do the hard work to actually make the products and the value in this country. Skywater, once again, it's because the culture of our country turned away from selling out towards greed is good. But that's fine. We totally understand. So what is funny to me is that aren't we still on the same page? We literally are like, greed is the disease. Everything else is just a symptom. Humans are naturally greedy, but we used to have guardrails against that greed. We used to educate people that if you become too greedy, you actually hurt the next generation. And this is exactly what we are proposing to do. Jadika, but government is not where power lies. Writing a new law does not change who you get your food from, right? Red Pill, good to see you. Writing a new law does not change who controls your medicine. Specifically when the people writing those laws are on the payroll of the very same corporations that we're trying to regulate. This is the problem. This is where it's so, when people are like, laws and politicians, isn't that what got us here? It's the fact that corporations have so much money that they've bought so much control. And we can get 535 new politicians, but if every single one of them are offered the same package Nancy Pelosi was, you can come in with $20,000 of net worth and leave with $500 million of net worth. Do we really think that that's going to fix or be changed? Not at all. It's only until we stop the corporation's ability to dominate the economy. There are no mom and pop shops. There are no local stores anymore. And all we're saying is corporations don't really care about us. But corporations are in charge of a lot of things that we really need. Right, Jay Valen? Corporations don't care about us, especially insurance companies, right? Health insurance companies, you actively pay them for a service your entire life. Then when it comes time to use their product, they don't care about you, right? Joshua, that won't work, because what power does that take back? Those very same people still control our medicine. Those very same people still control whether we get to see the doctor or not. Anytime that you're relying on other people to go out and take action at their own behest, what I say is, oh, rather than going out and committing acts of violence, why not just create a system that works better? So let's compare. So there's your idea. Here's my idea. Corporations don't give us healthcare. They are simply the intermediaries between us and the people in our community that provide us healthcare. All they do is set up the connections, set up the contract. They don't really do anything. It didn't used to be that insurance companies were always the middleman in this situation. It used to be this funny little thing where a bunch of people in the community relied on the healthcare providers that were in their community. And we didn't need any middlemen to help us because there was a bunch of people on one side that needed healthcare. There's a bunch of people on one side that needed food. And what they would do is they would reach out to the people in their community that provided them with healthcare. They'd reach out to the people in their community that provided them with food. And it used to be that we would call the farmer and say, hey, farmer, there's 50 of us and we'd like to buy some products from you. And they'd say, cool, well, there's no grocery stores, so I'll come deliver it to the local market. And you go, cool. And then all that happened was corporations came in and they said, hey, farmer, won't it be easier if we get all the people together for you, if we do the marketing? And then rather than going to sell your stuff at this local market, what if we had this thing called a grocery store? And that was all created over the last 60, 70, 80 years. So when the system stops working for us, Josh, we don't have to go crazy or develop something new. Why don't we just go back to the way it was before these greedy corporations were here? Because the same people that are producing our food, they still live in and around our community. The same people that are providing us healthcare. What's up, Noni Bear? There are doctors and nurses and healthcare providers around you that if you ask them what their biggest issue is, they won't say patients. They won't say, oh, I work too much. They'll say the insurance company. They don't want to be in this system either. Absolutely, Josh. But then if so many people hate this system that they would turn to your suggestion, that they would even think about your suggestion, then rather than jumping straight ahead to your suggestion, shouldn't we at least offer an alternative first? Hey, there are already called direct primary care organizations all across the country. Why don't we just turn away from traditional insurance, only use that insurance for emergency coverage, and then rather than paying the insurance companies who we know are just going to deny us anyways, why don't we pay that doctor that lives on our street? And if 100 or 1,000 people can all just pay that doctor that lives on our street, then we can have some preventative medicine that then we won't even need the emergency room as much, because then that person, that doctor who lives on our street, they care about us because they're a part of the community. So they care about what happens in the community. So it sounds easier than it is, but they really only, and Joshua, I appreciate you so much. You have been nothing but kind. You've nothing been understanding. It's the people that come in with black or white viewpoints. And it's like, no, everything's gray, right? So I appreciate you being like, yeah, shit's gray. So, because it really is. I didn't know about direct primary care for a little while ago either, but that's where it's nice and easy to think of it with the food providers, right? Farmers hate corporations, and the consumer and the customers hate corporations. It used to be that the corporations were like, hey, consumers, we'll make this easier for you. We'll make a nice central place for you to shop, and it'll be cheaper and more convenient. Hey, farmers, we'll make this easier for you. Rather than having to advertise and compete with the other farmers, we'll pay you all this flat rate. You know that you'll get your products sold, and you'll always have customers. But then the corporations, the frickin' middlemen, just started taking more and more and more and more. So now the customers can't afford the food. The farmer's getting screwed over. So let's just call the frickin' farmer. Hey, farmer, do you hate corporations? Yeah. Sweet, me too. We are sick of the grocery store. Could we figure out something else? And here's what we're doing. This isn't pie in the sky. This isn't bullshit. Nani Bear, I'm glad you're here for this. Because what we are starting first is food buying groups. Food buying groups. We are asking people to try to get 50 families in your area. Whether it's people from church, people from work, people from your street. And we're going to start with one freaking thing. Eggs. Because the only way that you can get discount pricing, or the only way that you can get farmers to work with us, is if we can go with them and say, hey, we've got 50 families. We've got 100 families that all want 1 dozen eggs a week. Can you sell us 100 dozen eggs a week? What price will it be? What price would you sell us 100 dozen eggs a week for? Well, they'll probably say, well, this is what the grocery store sells me for it, right? This is what the grocery store sells it to me for. And then boom, it's only one item, but it is proof of concept that we do not need to rely on corporations. How does it look in practice? Well, you have an ordering window. From Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, you can place an order for your eggs. You don't have to order. It doesn't matter if you do or not. You're not locked in. Just every week, do I want to buy eggs from this local farmer? If you say yes, you opt in. On Wednesday, the ordering closes. We send the order amount to the farmer, and every single Friday, we go meet with the farmer to pick up our eggs. Boom. That's a new system. That's not waiting on 50 million people to agree. That's not waiting on the politicians to write new laws. That's not waiting on people waking up enough to take action. That is simply saying, this shit doesn't work for us. We're going to make something that does. That's what we're building. That's what this is. So if you've stumbled here and you want to be a part of it, the Discord is where we break out into state. Right now, we've got a national meeting. Tomorrow night at 7 p.m., every single week we meet. Every single day I am here at 11 a.m. because we need to build the people that in this community, 7 p.m. Eastern, sorry. We need to build the people. We need to build a community large enough to rival the system. That's it. And the first step is goddamn eggs. Because they're easy, they're repeatable. So many people want them. They're quick and for the farmer. It's easy to tell how much you're getting. You don't have to weigh it. You see how many there are. We start with eggs. And if that's not your thing, let's do direct primary care. Y'all, we're going to coordinate this shit. And the moment that people realize there is a goddamn option and they don't need to get everything from corporations, my God, this will skyrocket. Because y'all, people don't want this. We're not in this situation because people want it. We're in this situation because we have no options. If we create an option, people will come. If you build it, they will come. Cutting down your cornfield to play ball? Because 40 hours a week should cover the basics. That's it. 40 hours a week should cover the basics. Mr. Maybe, it hurts my soul that we can't get this message out to more people because so many people feel the pain. I call it the economic rot. We all feel the economic rot that the 1% have bestowed upon us. But so many of us have to work our goddamn asses off 24/7 that we don't actually understand what the F is going on. because they lie to us. And the lies they tell us have these little speckles of truth that make the lie seem believable. Particularly when things change so fast in our society, people think that we're doing something wrong. Because when the previous generation has worked hard, and simply from working hard, they got ahead, when they see the current generation not getting ahead, well, they assume that they're just not working hard. Because the two assumptions are, okay, either the entire world has changed underneath my feet, either that I don't understand anything anymore, and that means the world is a scary place, or these damn kids just aren't working hard enough. Which one do you think people are going to gravitate towards? The non-threatening, less scary one. So I feel like I've done the whole route. So let me flip back around and I'll do it quickly for the new people. So Sanctuary Artist, I developed this entire thing because I wanted to talk to my parents without them getting all boomer mad, like without getting all crazy. And then you knew the 5 things they were going to say. One of the things that got through my dad, Sanctuary Artist, was I would told him, Pops, you worked construction your whole life. You and all of your buddies were the ones that built the $1 million houses that some greedy prick sold while you all never got enough. So it's 2 different things. Number one, when that part broke down on the job site and you had to go fix the machine, well, that job site was at a halt until you got there. The boss couldn't fix it because the boss didn't even know the name of the part that you were looking at, right? So the boss couldn't fix it. So who's the one that's really adding the value building that house? The goddamn artists that are skilled tradesmen? Or the CEO prick up top who simply had enough of daddy's money to go do marketing to sell somebody a house? That's where one of my favorite things is, you know how we can bring down the price of building new homes? Give the value back to the workers. It's so insane because all tradesmen already rely on each other. The foundation guy relies on the site grading guy. The drywall guy relies on the foundation guy, right? The electrical guy relies on the drywall guy. The plumbing relies on electrical. The flooring relies on plumbing. All of it. So those guys should get all the money and the value from what they're building. But instead, most of the money goes to some corporate asshole. So those are the 3 things. And this is what we're doing. This isn't pie in the sky. This isn't simply about an economic boycott. That's how we reel you in. We're sorry, folks. The boycott's great. Pushing back, 1 week of not spending, that is good. Mr. Maybe, doctors are desperate for a new system. If you Google direct primary care, you will see all over. No, Jay Valen, corporations don't care about us. That's all. Corporations don't care about us. What they want is for you and me to argue about the system, Jay Valen. They want you and I to be opposed. Jay Valen, I have 33 employees and 6 locations. All 6 of my locations are open right now. And if you see, I'm not paying a lot of attention to my company because my employees are really goddamn paid well. And so because my employees are paid so well, they care deeply. And because they care deeply, that means I get some of my time back. So I am so passionate about this because I have over 30 employees. And when I looked at how much $20 an hour actually was, I was fucking ashamed. And I said, how is it that I can offer a job? You know what it is when you offer a job? It's not charity. When I offer a job, it's so my business can make more money. And I think it's downright despicable that I would want to make more money and the person that I'm relying on to make more money for the company doesn't even get enough for food, right? We're making change. So, but Jay Valen, that's fine. You were the one, we're not making negativity. You were the one that came in and pointed to communism. But if you had really done any research, you'd recognize that in order for a capitalistic society to be healthy, it needs freedom of choice. It needs competition. And I think we can all look around at the lack of local general stores, at the lack of local grocery stores, at the lack of local doctor's offices, at the lack of local housing availability, that corporations simply don't care about us. That corporations have taken over all the aspects that humans need to live, not because they care about us and they say, hey, we took over all the access to your food, your healthcare, and your housing because we want to make sure that you're taken care of. No, it's because they want to make as much money as possible. So, but the government works for the people who pay their campaigns. Let me say it again. The government works for the people who finances their campaigns. So all politicians, the only way they can get in that position of power is if they get elected. The only way they get elected is if they have enough money for a campaign. And Jay Valen, what's the only way that politicians can get enough money for a campaign? Corporate funding. So that's all that I'm really saying. The corporations have taken over the economy. There is no competition. If you want a stat, 85%, 85% of companies, not only in America, but goddamn globally, have the same three top shareholders: Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street. Genesis, that would never work though. I already went over it with another person. So maybe I'll do it again in a minute, but I don't feel like doing it right now. So Jay Valen, I think we're having a good conversation. I'd love to hear next. And then Jay Valen, if the media actually told us the truth, we wouldn't be pointing in 1,000 different directions at all these different problems. No, Genesis, anytime that you are relying on millions of people to act on their own accord in a unifying fashion, it will never work. I think we all know that. Because that is literally the same as saying, man, if only 50 million people could go out there and elect new leaders. If only we could get 10 million people to run for office. And then if only we could get 50 million people to vote those people in. And then once those 10 million people get into power, if we could have them change the laws to push back against the corporations, then we might be able to fix it. What we're saying is something a little bit more practical, I think, that people won't change when the system does. People will change when the math does. And the math will only change once we make it change, right? Genesis, that's exactly so. Genesis, I think one is much more likely to last long term. I think one will scare people and the other one will get people to be like, oh, that's cool. So I just went through, were you here for my egg analogy, Genesis? Because the reason that corporations have the power on us, over us, is because we rely on them. Anytime that we protest, even if we did what you were suggesting earlier, I look at it like this. It's like a 10-year-old telling their parents they're going to run away from home. When a 10-year-old tells their parents they're going to run away from home, the parents aren't that nervous because the parents know that that child depends on them completely. So they could, leave for a little while or whatever, but the parent always knows, hey, they're coming back. because they depend on me for the things they need to live. Just wait till they get a little hungry. They'll come back. Just wait till they get a little cold. They'll come back. So, no, mutual aid programs and that's not what we're doing. I would only commit myself something like this if it worked. I'm not going to start a business that doesn't work. I'm not going to be a part of an organization that doesn't work. I'm not going to spin my wheels for nothing. Mutual aid, competition. What I say is we start showing up in every single Walmart parking lot and we make it a goddamn swap meet and farmers market every single Saturday and Sunday. When those mother effers have some competition right in their backyard, you bet they'll start paying a little bit more to their goddamn employees to care. And as soon as they start having some competition and those employees start caring, it'll make it a better situation for all of us. Speaking of that, let's put those same goddamn farmers markets in every single grocery store. I bet you they'll figure out a way to lower the price of their meat. I bet you they'll figure out a way to get a little bit healthier vegetables, right? So it's competition. It's developing a new system that says, screw this, then I am sorry, Genesis, you are part of the problem. You are letting your anger get into the way of logic because, first of all, 30 to 40 million people are so checked out that they didn't even vote in the last election. The other 30 million are brainwashed and believe what is happening is good. So we've got 130 million people that have their head in the sand. And then so you're saying that we got 50, 60, 70 million people that you want to all get up and literally fight when they literally won't even cancel their subscriptions to the very same people that are screwing them over? People do not change. Like, change does not happen when people get motivated to stand up together because people never stand up together. Not only that, the system is designed to thwart those tactics. They will literally just institute infighting and figure out how to make people go all the way, left and right. That hurts my heart, Genesis. I don't want things to get any worse for anyone. But the only reason that people are stuck in this system isn't because they want to be here, which is what it sounds like you're assuming. That if just enough people woke up and saw what you saw, that they would fight back. They'd elect new politicians, they'd change the laws, and everything would be fixed. But the greed is good culture would still be there. The corporations would still control where our food came from. The corporations would still have power over our medicine. And if somebody controls your medicine, they sort of control the fate of your life. Corporations would still control housing. In the first quarter of 2025, corporations purchased 30% of single-family homes that were on the market. So with what you're describing, Genesis, I do not understand how that would fix any of what I'm talking about. Accelerating the decline isn't going to make the billionaires sell their real estate portfolios. Accelerating the decline isn't going to make the billionaires sell their farmland. If anything, they're just going to raise the prices, distract us more. Yes, one. I'm sorry I didn't say hello earlier. And that's the problem, is that power is not voting. Power is not anger. Power isn't even coordination or protesting. Power is who controls the food supply. Power is who controls the healthcare and the medicine. It's what I think about all the time. I had a friend die who didn't get their diabetes medication. This was like 20 years ago, so it's still sad. But I think about it all the time. Like, I didn't realize how hard insulin was to get, I guess. And like, Now that I think about, like, dang, my friend died and not getting their insulin in like a short amount of time. And like, well, no, they forgot to take it. Like it was like something happened and they were alone and they couldn't get there in time. And I didn't even realize he had this disease. But then what it makes me think is, well, dang, you know, if somebody needs a prior authorization or if some pharmacy has it out, that corporation who doesn't have the insulin ready for that person, that corporation doesn't care. That corporation doesn't care. What do you mean? Everybody's angry. Nobody has an actual way to fix it. So they see one person do something. Genesis, it's fine. That's where we're not on different sides here. We just have different for the solution. It's not a bingo. People are angry, but literally all I've been talking about, maybe you're not really listening, is that anger is not power, because anger doesn't make you control the nation's medicine supply. Anger doesn't mean you all of a sudden control all the food or the hospitals. Anger,
That's what I just wanted
yeah,
to
go ahead.
because this is crazy. So it was, I guess it was like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I had no recollection of those 2 days, and I went to the hospital because like I have these marks in like on my arm, my armpit, and like my side. I'm like, what the fuck is this? It's all like black tissue. I'm like, oh my god. So I go to the doctor, I go to the hospital, and even they're like, what is that? I'm like, I don't know. You freaking tell me.
Yeah.
And so they hooked me up. I mean, like I had, I don't know how many different bags of antibiotics going, all this stuff. And I get home, and one of my friends is a doctor, and she's like, send me the pictures. I sent them to her, and here I was bit by a brown recluse 4 times. Yeah. So they send me back to the ER and everything to get more antibiotics.
What the fuck?
Now I have to do wound care where they pull off all, because it's all dead tissue now and it's growing. But had I not gotten, the antivenom and all that, it would have continued, and nobody knew what it was. So like I keep saying like PSA, because it's colder everywhere than when it's normally supposed to be. So they're telling people like recluses and widows are coming into your houses. So like shake your clothes, do what you have to, because I don't want anybody. Oh my god, it is so painful. Shut up, Mel. So yeah, like never in my life, through the Air Force, doing all the stuff I did there, did I ever think I'm going to get bit by a brown recluse. And not once, but 4 freaking times.
You've got quite the story. I was going to say, after everything you've been through, and and I got bit by a brown recluse 4 times. Oh, did they get it? Yeah, I went to the hospital, but they didn't know what it was. I had to send the picture to a friend, and that's why I wrote in the comments, they're overworked, they're stressed, they're underpaid, and they're just like, they're trying so hard. So when they see a lady with a bruise, and especially, sadly, a woman, they're, what is this? What's going on? And it's you. If people care about you, the outcomes are better.
Absolutely. And it did make a difference as soon as my friend said that and we got there. And I'll tell you, like, it was really busy the night before when I was in there. But we walked right in, and I told them, I'm like, hey, on-call doc sent me here. These are brown recluse plates. And I was treated within 15 minutes and back out of that hospital.
And that,
and I think you have to advocate for yourself too. And I really keep telling people that. And that's my hope of working with Oregon Health Authority, that women especially, and especially women of color, that we start listening to them. Like, listen to women when they tell you, So that's my hope. But I thought I'd make you laugh, and, at my expense.
That's insane. No, that's great. And now it ties in perfect, because now I'm going to go into, if you don't know what the problem is, it sounds really scary, right? So
there you go.
Awesome. I appreciate you, Wild One. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Bye. Just as I was saying, so say you get bit by a brown recluse spider and you walk into the doctor and they're like, hey, you got bit by a brown recluse spider. Have a good day. You're going to freak the F out. You're going to go, what do I do? 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 And that not knowing is going to be so scary that you're probably going to go try anything. And you'll go do this and you'll go do that. And you end up burning yourself out. You fall down from exhaustion. And really all you were doing was spinning in circles the whole time. So it didn't even really help. It's a lot of what happens when people recognize that, oh shit, our entire economy has been taken over by corporations. The whole of the media has been taken over by corporations. And the entire political process has been taken over by corporations. People either go, fuck it, I'm out. And they sit down and they say, there's nothing we can do about it anyway. Might as well just live a good life. Or Garden Fairy, same way as you. You're like, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? But once you get the blueprint, hey, you got bit by a brown recluse, and here is the exact step-by-step blueprint of how to fix it. You can't do anything right away. It's got to be over time, small changes, daily habits, because if you try to do it all at once, you'll wear yourself off and you'll get exhausted. Oh, 7-Eleven. I always forget because it's so hard for me because I don't want to repeat ideas, but then we get entirely new groups of people. So we actually have our plan. We know what we are doing. Corporations have control over us, not because we're not coordinated, not because we're divided, because we don't have any control over the things we need to live. Right now, even if we had 100 million people protesting, well, the very next day, we'd go and buy our groceries from the same people we're protesting against. We'd buy our power and our internet and our gas from the same people we're protesting against. So we can protest and demand change for as long as we want. But until we've got any actual leverage, we will never achieve that change. We are like a bunch of 10-year-olds telling our parents we're going to run away. That parent is not concerned when a 10-year-old says they're going to run away because you sit there and go, oh, you'll be back when you get hungry. You'll be back when you get cold because you depend on me for everything you need to live. So when we all go and protest, it's literally like we're a bunch of 10-year-olds. Corporations, politicians, we hate you. We want you to change. And they go, okay, go have your little day of protest. You'll be back the very next day to buy all your food when you get hungry. You'll be back the very next month to pay your rent when you get cold. Protests are a part of it. It's just only if the institutions of power actually work for the people. When media is for profit instead of for the people, the media doesn't give a shit. When politicians are for profit instead of for the people, they don't really give a shit. So what we need to do is stop relying on corporations. We all need the same thing. So it's not an ideological change that we're asking. We're asking people to see, hey, corporations don't care about you or your family. Corporations will actively hurt you or your family. T, that was because it was over a year long. They had a clear goal and people kept up at it because they had an alternative, right, T? They had an alternative. If they made walking to work illegal, then I would have liked to see what people did next. That's what it is. Kai, absolutely, but the government works for the corporations. So, oh my God, T, was your father around? Like, those are the things. I want a combination of the Montgomery bus boycott and the Rainbow Coalition. That's what this is. People recognizing that it's coming together is what will save us, but only after, like only once we've come together and built some alternative options will protest work. EPO, that's what this is about. But what we're saying is, hey, why don't we come together and connect in real life? T, I would just, God, I would love to talk to them. So EPOH, that's sort of what we're saying is that, so rather than just having the protest be a one-day thing, let's connect it with everyday life. Because protesting doesn't really matter if the very next day we have to go buy groceries from the people we're protesting against. Protesting doesn't really matter if we need to go pay our internet and our utility and our rent to the same people we're protesting against. So protesting on its own is not power. Power is the people that control your food and your medicine and your housing and your retirement. That's what power is. And the people right now, our democracy is failing, not because people are lazy or have their eyes closed. It's failing because we have no other options. Sandy, great to have you here. It's failing because we have no other options. People won't move away from corporate ones because we write new laws and elect new leaders, and they suddenly wake up and are like, oh, this is what will change it. No, they'll change when the math changes. So we're going to change the math. We're going to stop asking for change from a position of no leverage. We have to understand that if we say jump, the only way they jump is if we've got leverage on them. Garden Fairy, that is correct. Our whole point is right now, we can't change our buying power. So that was why they got rid of all the competition. That's why there are no more mom and pop shops anymore. Because they knew that if we had to shop there, if we had to work there, that if there are no other options, what are we going to do? You can't go shop anywhere else. You can't go work anywhere else. So why would I pay my employees enough to care when you have to come shop here anyway? When you have to come work here anyway? I'm going to pay my employees as little as possible, because honestly, paying my employees as little as possible helps me. Because if you don't have any savings, you ain't got no leverage, do you? If you don't have any savings, that's the only way that when I call you up at 10 p.m., hey, you're working a double tomorrow, see you at 6 a.m. And you say, but I too bad. If you don't come in, you're fired. If you don't have any savings, then you've got to listen to that phone call. You're stuck. So Sanctuary, the eggs is going to be the first step. We are literally putting together a 3-page step-by-step guide. This is why group purchasing power is important. This is how purchasing power can change your community. These are the practical steps to take it. Because really, it's like this. We need 50 to 75 to 100 families all committed to buying one thing. And I think it's pretty easy to do 1 dozen eggs. So in your area, and I will fucking help too, in any area, this is why I know it's going to work. We've got all of fucking America to work with. I'm sorry for cursing, but I'm so excited. We've got all of America to work with. So we will find it where we will find 2 and 3 and 4 people in the same area that say, shit, are we doing this right now? Because I will call 50 people that I know tomorrow and see if they want to buy eggs. And then Sanctuary Artist goes, you think you're going to call 50 people? I'm going to call 75 people. And then Noni Bear's like, y'all going to call 75 people? I'm going to call 100 people. And literally by the end of the week, we've got 75 people that want to buy eggs. Not because the eggs they get from the corporation are bad, because they're saying, F that goddamn corporation. They fired my husband last week. They drained all of our savings because when I wanted to have health care, they didn't pay for it. This is what I know will happen next. So when somebody comes in and says, oh, thanks, you've given me hope, I want to be like, y'all have given me hope for the better part of a year. Because I see it happening every single day. Now we just need to stay connected. We've got the idea. People want this. It's not like this is it. Oh, Venkel, went a little too far there. Not that I'm not with the theme of what you're saying. It's just the way that we talk about this and go about this is very important. People's entire identity has, not at all. It's just that people's entire identity has been wrapped up in this silly little system. And the system really works hard at protecting the identity. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying the way you say things matter. That's all. These are the amount of people that have signed up for this. This is the amount of people that have signed up for this. It's going to happen. If we could get 1/10 of these people to start buying eggs with us, oh my God. This is over the last 90 days. Yeah, we started the first blackout was in September. See, October. So September, October, November. December. Yeah, it's about 90, 100 days. It's been tens of thousands of people. Well, it's not my eggs, Merv. But Merv, I mean, we got a couple people in your area. That's what I'm talking about. Get 75, 100 people. That's all it is. But Venkel, I don't believe that because it's not just capitalism. Because what it is it's human greed, and human greed can happen in any system, right? So no matter what, there's going to be human nature. And what you're doing is you're literally playing into the hands of the billionaires because they want us to label ourselves, because as soon as we label ourselves, we immediately ostracize other people for no reason other than saying, oh, well, I am this. No. Why does it have to be one specific thing? Why do we have to use the language of the oppressors, of the people up top? Why don't we develop our new shit, right? Okay, Venkel, but talking like that will not help your case. That's all I'm saying. If you go up to the majority of Americans, Noni Bear, if you had, when you first came into this live 3 weeks ago, if I had said, y'all, capitalism rewards and regenerates, I guess degenerates, but capitalism rewards and regenerates human needs. Without being anti-capitalist, this can't be defeated. So unless you're anti-capitalist, you're against us. Is that gonna win over the better part of people? Or if we say something like, hey, corporations don't care about you, but dang, the community's health, the business's health relies on the community's health. So why is it that corporations who rely on us don't seem to care about us? Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Noni. I should have said rhetorical. But that's really what it comes down to, is I think the spirit of what I'm saying is away from individualism and towards community effort. But the way that you speak about it, and it's so funny, and this is where we've always got to make an example, right? So only 30% of people want society to be like this. The rest of us are moving forward. 70% of us are moving forward. But sometimes it's really sad when people in that 70%, even though 9 out of 10 things are agreed upon, but because we don't agree on one single thing, I'm going to push back against this. I'm going to push back against this. Because if you don't call it out without even understanding that, hey, you're coming in very black and white. I'm just trying to make the situation a little bit more gray for you, is that I'm not doing anything based on pure, where would you say earlier? With motives. I don't have any motives other than changing the current system. That's my motive. Changing the current system. My motive would be to get the majority of people to see that when you give people food, housing, and healthcare, that when people have what they need, they become more productive. They become more effective. They become more valuable members of society. And that's the problem. If people ever choose ideology over practicality, oh yeah, bye-bye. Because your ideology will separate people. and that's what the system has designed to do. What we lead with is practicality, because we are comfortable enough and confident enough in who we are and what we're doing that we don't need to sit here and use labels and terms from 50, 60, and 100 years ago. We are localists. We are moving forward. And we believe that all humans have intrinsic value, that every single person deserves what they need to live, and that a human right is simply the things you need to live. The things you need to live are what human rights are. So if you think about what people need to live, it's actually the same across the whole world. People need food. People need housing. People need health care. And oxygen, water. So if the majority of people have food and housing, well, they're actually going to do better at their job. Because think if you didn't have any food and you tried to go do your job really well, you're really going to be thinking about food, not your job, right? Imagine if you don't have a home and you try to go do your job. Well, you're going to be thinking about where your home is going at that night, right? You're not going to be thinking about your job. And then not only that, if you are constantly worried your whole life about where food and water and housing come from, you're only going to ever be worried about yourself, right? You're not going to be worried about other people. So we're going to live in a very selfish society. Absolutely, Patrick. And that's why they wanted to take over what we need to live. That's where if they raise the price of televisions and radios, we would simply stop buying televisions and radios. If they raise the price of clothes so much, we just would stop buying new clothes. But corporations were like, dang, we need to always make a profit. And so if we want to always make a profit, we need to be able to raise the price and people still have to buy it. So what products can we raise the price and people still have to buy it? Let's take control of those industries, because if we buy all the things that people need to live, every day at 11 a.m. Sanctuary, here's the Discord, and then we meet every single Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern. That's where we really start building this community. Garden Fairy, that is noble, but it will not help anything long term unless we start putting together food buying groups, unless we start putting together direct primary care, and unless we start showing tradesmen that they're getting gypped and there's a better way. Because really, the drywall guy and the electric guy and the plumber guy and the site grading guy and the foundation guy should all work as a team. F the boss. And they should all work as a team because they all already depend on each other. That's it. They all depend on each other. But rather than working as a team to make sure that every single person does the right method at the right step, no, we allow the owner up top to keep us isolated and separated so that we can never see that cooperation would make so much more value for all of us. But they keep us competing. So if you are feeling this, we have actionable steps to take. Because if protesting alone is not power, writing new laws is not power, electing new politicians is not power. EPOH, that's where we need to start really small. It needs to be like one, we're going to build up to those, but it'll be food first, and we're starting with eggs. Then it'll go to healthcare next, and we start with primary care. And then it will go to tradesmen co-ops, where we start calling the electric guy, the plumber guy, all of this, and we have them form a team. So this is how we're going to stop wishing, and we're just going to start doing. I've started 3 businesses already. One is really successful. And this feels the same to me with that. where it's like, oh, there's a viable path forward. We just have to follow the steps. Because that's where this seemed really hard for me before, was when, dang, well, it's basically what everybody normally thinks. Dang, well, we need 40 or 50 million people to wake up and come together. And if we can get 50 million people to agree on this, then we can move forward. That will never happen. That will never happen. Liminal line, I would love to see them cracking down on us buying eggs. Because guess what? We know that that's coming. We will form egg buying groups. And they will say, because of the safety of this and that, we cannot allow you to buy eggs. And you know what? We're just going to keep on doing it. So that's the beauty of starting with economy, is when you simply refuse to participate in the system. What are they going to outlaw? Buying eggs from your neighbor? What are they going to outlaw? Buying healthcare from the doctor that lives on your street? What are they going to outlaw? The electrician and the plumber and the drywall guy all working together because they all already rely on each other's work to make a nice house? Let them outlaw everyday life, because that's what will accelerate people understanding. So that's fine then. You don't not do something because somebody might stop its effectiveness in the future. Absolutely, Patrick. They'll figure out a way. Y'all, we've got a 4-step plan. Break the silence. That's what this is now. Build community. And we build community so that we can start breaking the fear. Because we're all afraid right now, because we're literally looking around going, well, I don't know if my neighbor is going to do that. I don't know if they're going to do that. So this step is to break the fear. Basically, proof of concept. Proof of concept. So break the silence, then we break the fear. You know what step 3 is? Break the system. Because none of us are under the impression that once we start buying eggs from somewhere else, that they will just be happy about it. Because it's only when exiting the system becomes a viable reality. They let me talk about it right now. But yeah, you're right. As soon as we get 100 families across 10 states that are all buying their eggs from somewhere else. But you know what? Some of those families will start making a frickin' stink. And they'll say, all we're doing is buying the eggs from the very same people the grocery store buy the eggs from. I love some good wordplay. All we're doing is buying eggs from the same people. No, Ashley, because people aren't going to do that. That is what you're on the right track, because our democracy is failing, but not because people are apathetic or have their eyes closed. The problem is that you are suggesting, hey, you've got 2 options, stay with this system or go off grid. What I'm saying is surely there should be something in between that is more appealing to people. And that's where yet we don't have a democracy, yet we all stay in this system because we're stuck. And when the system does not work for us, we don't need to do anything drastic. We don't need to do anything extreme. When the system does not work for the people, we don't need to build something new. We go back to what we used to do. And that's rely on each other. There are people in your community that are growing and producing food. It's just that farmer is so used to the corporation calling them, and then they sell all their stuff to the corporation. It's just habit. So what if we had, these egg buying groups, what we're going to do is we're going to get 100 families. And what if I had 100 families that I could then call a farmer and say, hey, we've got 100 families that want 1 dozen eggs a week. What would be the price to make it worth it for you to sell us 100 dozen eggs a week? And they'll be like, why are you doing this? And we'll be like, oh, we hate the corporations. We're so sick of them controlling all the eggs. When, man, you're a part of our community. We would so much rather just deal with you than have to deal with these corporations. Because these corporations, they're putting things in our food that aren't food. These corporations like actively hate us. But Sarah, that's where we're going to change it. That's where we're going to change it. So, and that's where it starts with the economy that completely took over. After they took over the economy, they completely control the media. Yeah, because life systems, that's where it's not about getting 50 million people to suddenly stand up and take action in unison. It's getting 50 million people to be like, oh, this is so much better. That's it. So Juanita, we would eventually add in produce, then we would add in beef, but we start with eggs. And this is how we change it. So it all comes down to the fact that why doesn't working 40 hours a week cover the basics anymore? That's because the corporations don't have to pay employees enough to live. They don't have to pay them salaries that are high enough for them to care. Because the corporations don't have to. They know that the customer doesn't have another store to go shop at. They ran out all the mom and pop general stores decades ago. And the corporation knows that that employee isn't going to go leave their job because they're barely scraping by. So they don't have to pay their employee enough to care because they know that the customer isn't going to leave and go somewhere else. And they know that the employee isn't going to leave and go somewhere else. So that's why they don't pay us enough. And then when we don't have savings in our bank account, we have zero leverage. When we are about to go broke next week, that's the only way that we would accept a minimum wage job. So that's why employees don't want to pay us enough, because if we don't have any savings, we don't have any leverage. So they don't want us to have any savings, so they don't pay us enough for savings. And they don't have to pay us enough for savings because there's no competition. And then if this was just the case and the media still worked for the people instead of for profit, then we would just tell the truth using the media. But instead, the media wants us living in separate realities. The media wants us living in separate realities because then we fight over why we're in separate realities rather than saying, who the hell told us lies? And then, man, politicians were supposed to be for the people, but politicians became for profit. So now, no matter what we do, we can't vote with our dollar, we can't speak the truth, and politicians don't give a shit about us. So we have nothing left to do but to come together. But if we come together and just protest, it won't matter because we don't control our food. We don't control our medicine. And the people that control the food and the medicine, they're the people in charge. They're the people there. That's what it is. So, if we just protest, it won't work because we don't have any leverage. So we need to take back some leverage. And that would be us figuring out where we get our food from instead of relying on the corporations. And this isn't hypothetical. We are doing this right now. In every single state. So basically, the Discord is where we break out into states. Every single state, we are forming teams. There is multiple things that we are doing. This is just the first step. So if this doesn't appeal to you, we'll have something else in a couple weeks. But the first thing we need to do is take back the ability of us to buy food, of us to get what we need. So we are going to form food buying groups, right? We are going to form food buying groups. T, I got something for you in Atlanta then. There's this group, Collectively Sustainable. But we are going to form food buying groups. Because what that does is once we've got 50 or 100 families that all want to buy 1 dozen eggs a week from a local source, then we can call up the gosh darn farmer. And I forget who asked, but no, you don't need a business for this, because it's money going to the farmer. And then once you have 50 or 100 families, or just any kind of order where it's, hey, I've got 50 dozen eggs a week that we want to pick up from you, then we just call the farmer. So say that there are 5 of us in the same area, me and Noni Bear and a couple others, Garden Fairy, Life Systems. Say we're all in Maryland, where I'm at. So what if all of us make it our mission to get those 100 families? It just takes 4 people getting 25 families that say, yeah, I'm sick of corporations too, and I would like to buy my eggs from the farmer instead of going through corporations. That's it. Corporations don't care about us, but they're in charge of everything. EPOH, nice. I'm actually building up our regional shit right now because I became friends with people in West Virginia and Pennsylvania and Virginia, and I need a Delaware buddy. Because what happens is, yeah, we take action by state, but guess the fuck what? Sorry, I cuss when I get excited, I guess. Guess what? This way I don't have to do just Maryland farmers. I can have EPOH call his Delaware farmers. Patrick call his West Virginia farmers. Somebody else call their Pennsylvania farmers. And it opens up the ability to bring more people into the cooperation, into cooperating. And then once enough people say, I like buying from the farmer, but I want to learn how to do it myself, that's when we get Al over there to teach us about permaculture and regenerative agriculture. Because there will always be people that say, this is great, but how can I do more? And then once we get 10 million people, everyone understanding, oh, I should grow my own food, because then I don't even have to rely on the farmer for some of this produce. And then you learn from others, because I don't know how to do it, but I've got land, I've got the motivation, I just need to learn from Al. So it's opening up people's eyes that there are options. That's really all it is. I think that we are in this position, we are in this area that, so basically what we're talking about is we started off with, why doesn't 40 hours a week cover the basics anymore, right? Why can somebody bust their ass, but their salary is lower than the cost of living? So then we came to the conclusion, well, that's because there's no competition. That's because they completely dominate everything in our society. And then it's also like, well, if we don't have any savings, they've got a lot of leverage over us, right? If we don't have any savings, then we can't say no to them, because they know that we're like 3 weeks away from not having food or 2 weeks away from not paying rent. So they don't want us to have savings, because just a little bit of savings gives us leverage. So then we're like, okay, well, if everything sucks so bad for the majority of people, why isn't it that when we protest, nothing changes? Why isn't it that when we all say we're sick of this, nothing changes? Well, that's because we don't actually control anything. We don't have any power, because power isn't a bunch of people protesting. Power is controlling a nation's food supply. Even they say armies march on their stomach, right? The whole world is ran by their stomach, by the food supply. Not only that, Garden Fairy would love for you to join the Discord. We meet every single Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Sundays at 7 p.m. is where we all get to know each other, is where everybody gets to come in. Ma Bell, Sundays is mainly for this is how you can teach others. Ma Bell, Sundays is about this is how you can teach others. So we meet every single Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern, because y'all, if we're going to stop being strangers, if we're going to start connecting, then we need to, if we're going to start connecting and start building a community, we got to start being strangers first. No, Cutlass, we just worked backwards from economy doesn't care about us because there's no competition for the corporations. And the corporations know that if they keep us broke, that means they have leverage over us. Well, and so then why is it that when all of us come together to speak about the truth, that they don't let it? Well, because the media is against us. They just lie to people and separate us into different realities. And then the politicians do not care about correcting the imbalances because politicians, like media, work for profit now instead of for the people. So we thought, well, we need to do something. We need to all come together. But if we just scream and shout about it, it doesn't do shit, because what's really important is controlling our food supply. Because just like an army marches on its stomach, an economy and a nation runs on its stomach as well. So we need to take back control of our food. And then just like if we're all sick and we don't have our medicine that we need to live, we won't be able to continue getting our food. So we need to take back our health care, because the corporations don't really do shit. We kind of discovered that. They really just plop themselves in between us and the things we need to live. And the only way they got to do that was decades ago. They said, hey, communities across America, we care about you. We're going to make this really convenient for you because we care about you. We care about people more than profits. So we're going to make sure that we're stewards, that we're not stealing, we're stewards. We'll watch over that. This is yours, but let us be stewards for it. So, Noni, I might have to use you again here. Noni Bear, if when you first came into this 3 or 4 weeks ago, if you had heard me say, all right, this group is about seizing the means of productions and governance, I don't know if Noni Bear would have stayed with us, because that kind of talk alienates the majority of people. What we're really saying is sort of the same thing, but in a bit more of a practical way and without such weighted language. Because the whole goal is to try to get as many people to listen to you for as long as possible. And not that what you're saying is bad, but I think the majority of Americans have been conditioned, nay, brainwashed, to be repulsed at your sentence. But if you say something closer to the lines of like, why do the stock prices go up, but salaries never do? The only way a stock price could go up is if the workers were skillful, doing a good job, making the owner more money, but it's not. Or the other question is, here's the best one, why is it that we can make more and more money for the company, but it never goes to the workers? Because look, back when we say, oh, this was the golden age of America, it was actually the amount of money that we made for the company, which is blue, was very close to the amount of money that we were paid. So I truly believe that if the money we were making for the company, which is the blue line, was still very close to the money that we were paid, well, if Americans had 100 grand in their bank account, that doesn't make them happier because they have more money. I mean, it does, but it makes them happy because they've got leverage. They have leverage now. So if people had 6 figures in their bank account, then they could say no to that minimum wage job. If people had 6 months of savings in their bank account, then when the boss calls you up and says, you need to come into work tomorrow, you can't say no. There we go, Cutlass, thank you. Well, no, we're on the same team, right? I love you. We're on the same team, 100%. And honestly, we're probably very closely aligned. It's just that I wrote this whole thing because I know for a fact that my MAGA father, who was in construction his whole life, I know for a goddamn fact that my dad believes this. That deep down in his heart, he knows that that job site would not work without him and his buddies showing up every day. Because the job site already grinds to a halt when that part that only he knows how to fix gets broken. So I try to tell my dad, hey, why is it that you're the most vital guy on the job? And he's like, what? I'm the most vital guy on the job? And I go, yeah. When the machine breaks down, you're the only one that knows how to fix it. The boss doesn't even know the name of the goddamn part. Yet the boss treats you like shit, doesn't pay you or all your buddies enough to live. And then, because they're doing back-breaking work, they then have to go get health care that they can't even afford. So we all pay for it, right? We all pay for it. 35 is a joke. That's about what the average salary is. Absolutely, Cutlass, but we have to lead with practicality. We have to lead with people's lived experiences. Because when you do that, if I had told my dad initially what you had said, it would have been like, no. And if they don't give a fuck, then move the right on. Because this is not about convincing people whose head are in the sand. Why do you think I'm not talking to Green Valley? Who gives a fuck if you're an idiot? There's a reason Trump loves the uneducated. So I'm not going to sit here and spend all my time trying to convince somebody who obviously doesn't have more than one brain cell. Pumpkin eater, you're all Peter, you're right. Part of my idea was a general union. Because I said to myself, well, if we can just wake up enough people to see this, fuck that, that's never going to cause change. That's never going to cause change. You will not get enough people to wake up to see it. That's how our system got to where it is today. You know how you get enough people to wake up? You give them a better system. You give them a better system. That's what it is. Because right now, the only place we can buy eggs is the grocery store, is from the corporations. I think that the Democrats are just as much in cahoots with corporations as the other side. Both parties are two sides of the same coin. Liminal line, I will never say that because number one, it is stupid. You're talking to a business owner. You're talking to a business owner who has 35 employees. I don't think that I brought nothing to the table in terms of the organization that I set up and empowering over 35 people to not only make their lives better, but to make the life of the community better too. Cutlass, you're but I hate both of them. That's the best analysis I've heard about it. But we have to understand that because they have had the power for so long, we cannot simply talk the way that we would like to. Because if we use certain words, they are trigger words that leads to an explosion. And so then we lose the very people. Because here's the thing. If I went to my father and I told him about, hey, you're the most important guy on the job. You're the one that knows how to fix the part that the boss doesn't even know the name of. Not only this, you're the ones that are doing the hard work. And the boss pays you about 200 grand. All of the workers get paid 200 grand. But the boss themselves makes 250 grand off the work that you're doing. But that's 10 guys, 20 guys, all getting paid 12,500. So those 20 guys that actually do the work, they get paid 12,500. Meanwhile, the guy that sat his ass in the air-conditioned truck the whole time got paid $250,000. I think most people recognize that that's not right. That if you do the hard work, you should get your fair share of the reward. But if you say it in a way that turns people off, they could very much agree with your idea, but because the packaging is wrong, they don't listen. Remember, presentation is everything. And you have to know who you're talking to. You have to literally be like, oh, the majority of people are brainwashed against anything except for this system. This is part of the way the system protects itself. Is that if you don't use the exact right key, the exact right language to unlock that door, then people will literally plug their ears before you even start talking. That's a lot of what we go over on our Sunday evening meetings is how do we talk to people. That's why this food buying group is so much easier because we don't have to talk about shit. Because whether you're a fucking MAGA or whether you are this, whether you're a localist, hey, corporations are screwing us over. We're forming a group so that we don't have to buy our eggs from corporations. If we could offer you eggs from a local source for a good price every week, would you take it? The majority of Americans will say yes. They are making a political decision because anytime you get someone to no longer participate in the system that helps the corporations and the billionaires, then that is one less person that is helping the corporations and the billionaires. And they might be a red hat. They might be somebody that if you walked up to them and said, hey, we're trying to seize the means of productions, are you in? They'd say, get out of here, you commie. But if you called them and were like, hey, we really hate corporations as consumers, turns out farmers aren't super happy with corporations too. And we actually found a couple farmers that we believe would sell us their eggs. If they would do that, would you take a dozen eggs a week from a local farmer? You are literally converting someone to a new ideology. You are taking them away from the fact that, hey, you have to rely on corporations for everything, and you're showing them that you can rely on people in your community. I just think that that is a better way to convert people to your way of thinking than what Jay Valen was saying earlier, that you must name the system. You have to talk in theory before you talk about anything practical. That's the best way to have your movement fail. Do you sell eggs, Sarah? Because wouldn't that be amazing? Not only could we put together a food buying group, we could save one of our members' own farms. So, same here, Juanita. That's what we're saying. Practicality over ideology, because the ideology is really only there so that people say, wait, I'm not that, or wait, they're not that enough. That's why we started with chickens. Honestly, Sarah, this adds an extra level to it where we can say, hey, we're starting food buying groups to support local farmers. And if you're in Indiana, we actually have a person who's a part of this group that has their own farm. So as soon as we get 50 families in the Indiana area that are near this zip code, then Sarah Bellum's farm will start delivering 50 dozen eggs a week to all the families that want them. There's a local meet on, you can even do two. On Mondays, you can pick up from this area, and from Thursdays, you can pick up from this area. So that way you can hit two different locations. This is a goddamn business idea. This is where when people are like, oh, mutual aid, no, new businesses that actually care about their community. And it doesn't even have to be a business. It's intermediaries. It's coordinators. So I'm running on 2 hours, y'all. I'll probably get going here in a minute. If you haven't yet, join the Discord. Sarah, Sarah, would not make me happier to have you be the first farm that we try to rally around. I mean, we all saw the picture that I put up earlier is real. This is how many people. I'll zoom in and we can see how many people are in Indiana. But that's what we're trying to do is we got to put together food buying groups so that then once we got 50 people looking to buy a dozen eggs a week, then we just call local farmers. Hey, we got 50 dozen eggs a week. What would you sell them to us for? And then that farmer has the reliability of 50 dozen eggs. Guess what will happen next? One of the people buying the eggs will be like, do they sell veggies too? And you'll say, not yet, but probably in about a month. And then there'll be 5 other people that are like, do they sell anything else? And then we say, yeah, we sell veggie boxes. And then we start the veggie boxes. And then farming and food might not be your thing. Maybe healthcare is. Maybe you want to get 50 or 100 families to all join a direct primary care, to only use your health insurance for emergencies and have your primary care be done by somebody in your community. Because the person in your community actually cares about you. Because if you ask that healthcare provider in your community what their biggest annoyance was, they would say corporations. If you think about it, Amazon is the best example of rent charging, of rent seeking. Amazon does nothing. Amazon connects people who want to buy products with people who sell products. And then Amazon calls drivers and has them go between. Amazon adds nothing of value. But if you think about it, all grocery stores is the same fucking thing. It is a group of people who say, we don't do anything. We don't farm food. We don't make art. But man, we want to make money. So what if we just shuffle some things around? What if we call this farmer and we're like, hey, farmer, can I buy all your food? And then boom, we own all that farmer's food. And then what if we call all the consumers and are like, hey, consumers, we've got your food. And then in the beginning, let's act like we're only doing it for pleasure. Let's act like we're doing it because we love this community. And then once people start depending on us, once people start needing us, then guess what? All we have to do is ratchet up the pressure. That's what it is. That's what it is. So, yep, this is a group that starts with economic pushback, but I think we all know that a week-long boycott won't fix the economic system in America. But what it does do is it gets people opening their eyes and saying, dang, what more can I do? And once they ask that, this is the room for them. Because we tell you, well, hey, what more you can do is this, is that the power the corporations have over us isn't actually because we are all divided. It's because the people up top control all the things we need to live. So in order to take back some of the power, we need to reduce our reliance on them. The only way we can reduce our reliance on them is start relying on other people. But the only way that we can rely on other people and people in our community is if we stop being strangers with them and we start connecting with them first. We are forming food buying groups right now to take back control over where we get our food from. We are forming direct primary care groups right now to take back where we get our health care from. And then eventually we will form co-ops and businesses where all the tradespeople in an area take back the value of their work. And then we can actually get construction at actual pricing that it costs rather than having all this markup from the corporations. We've got 2 ways to stay connected. Well, 3 really. I just laid out the Discord. The Discord is where we go to break out into states. And then once we break out into states, we form teams. And then we meet every single Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern to go over this. I got to get going. I appreciate you all so much. T, I would love to hear more from you. Your story sounds incredible. And if you're in Atlanta, I actually have an organization that is doing incredible things in Atlanta. All right, everybody, I appreciate you all so much. Make sure you join the Discord. I'll drop it one more time. We have our meeting tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern. Ryan, really appreciate you. Noni, appreciate you. Pumpkin Eater, it really makes me happy when new friends come into the Discord. Pauline, I appreciate you being here every day. You all mean a lot to me. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.